This video released by the Ukrainian Army shows its soldiers in battle near the village of Staromaiorske, which was recaptured from Russian forces last week. The Marines who fought in the battle, Ukraine's biggest advance in weeks, said the fighting was brutal, their timing was off, and that the invaders were ready for them.
The Russians waited for us. They shot anti-tank weapons and grenade launchers at us. My car drove over an anti-tank mine, but everything is well. The vehicle held the hit, and everyone was alive. We unloaded and ran towards the cover, because the most important is to find cover and then move on.
Kyiv's current counteroffensive is backed by billions of dollars in Western military aid, equipment, and training. But war stories of the Battle of Staromaiorske, recounted to Reuters near the front line in southeastern Ukraine, give an indication of why this highly anticipated operation has proven slower and bloodier than expected.
We
advanced slowly but surely. What can I say? They shoot. Everything flies. It was scary, but we moved on. Nobody backed up. Everyone did a great job. Many of us didn't come back, but we mostly preserved our strength.
The Russians have had months to prepare their fortifications and sow minefields, while the Ukrainians lack the air superiority that their NATO allies normally expect in their training drills. Ukrainian commanders say the deliberately slower pace is needed to avoid high casualties. Russia on Monday announced that Ukraine's counteroffensive was not going as planned. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, speaking at a military conference in Moscow, said Ukraine was, quote, desperately hurling new forces into attacks on Russian positions, but had failed to advance.
Over the past month, due to the successful actions of our troops, the enemy's losses totaled more than 28,000 servicemen.
Shoigu said Ukraine was wasting billions of dollars of weapons supplied by the West.
Amid the failure of the so-called counteroffensive, the Kyiv regime, backed by its Western sponsors, has focused on carrying out terrorist attacks on civilian infrastructure.
On Monday, 2 people were killed and 4 injured, according to Russian officials, in Ukrainian shelling of the city of Donetsk, which is under Russian control. Some 250 miles to the west, smoke billowed from a gaping hole in an apartment building, seen here in video posted on social media by President Volodymyr Zelensky. According to Ukraine, a Russian missile attack on the city Zelensky grew up in killed at least 6 people and wounded dozens more.
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting. Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony.